Hey folks, it's Woody here over at USA Made Blade, just coming to you from the shop this afternoon to do a quick breakdown video on the ZT0308. So we've already done a video about this knife and the things that we like about it, but one thing I probably didn't mention in that, and maybe didn't know because they've just come in, is just one great factor about this knife is how easy it is truly to break down. So I didn't want to just break down any knife that we'd be selling, and don't really have any anodizing tasks for any right now. So this one is mine. You'll be able to tell by the Sasquatch on the clip and the fact that there is some wear. I did try and clean it up some, but you're probably gonna see some tape residue or something like that, maybe a little right there on the blade. So anyway, just not taking apart a random knife just for the heck of it. So we'll go through the whole process, but let's start with what all you're gonna need. So most importantly, I always express in all my videos that Weehaw bits. If you're not using them, get them if you're going to be taking knives apart, because they are the best, and you're much less likely to have strip screws. If you just go to Lowe's and buy the little crap Torx bit sets there, you're going to strip screws out. So get some Weehaw bits. You can get them online. We don't sell them, so I must really like them if I'm promoting them. So you're going to need a T8 and a T6. So those are the sizes you're going to need. And then you're going to need a 1/2-inch socket wrench. And you can use just a pair of pliers or something like that, but the 1/2-inch socket wrench this just makes life so much easier. It's how they designed the knife specifically for that. And then depending upon how you're going to take it apart, you're going to want a set of pliers. And I'll explain that more in a minute. So let's jump right into it. Because of the fact that you can't see anything on this background, I am going to throw in just some white paper towels. You know what? I don't need that showing through. So throw down some white paper towels. It'll just help so we can see all the screws and everything a little better. I usually recommend doing this over an empty box lid or a tray or something, just so you can, if you drop any screws, you'll be able to easily find them. So I like to start with the pocket clip for a couple reasons. Number one, if you're gonna have any strip screw problems, they're typically gonna be on the smaller T6 screws. So, and typically if I ever have a strip screw problem, it's on the pocket clip. But, so start and get all those screws out. If you're just taking your knife to clean behind the pivot, then you don't really have to take the pocket clip off. But for some people, you want to take it off to clean behind the pocket clip if it gets really dirty, or you want to clean the pocket clip itself. Some of these screws still have a little bit of the Loctite or something on them, so sometimes you got to push them through. And so get that pocket clip taken apart. And then next, I actually like to start with my pivot screw. So this 1/2-inch wrench just fits perfectly on here. And honestly, it usually just takes, and by the way, I've not taken mine apart yet. So I've taken apart plenty for anodizing, but this will be the first time. So hopefully it's not too gunky inside. So the pivot comes right off, and then from there, I like to work my handle screws down the side. Now, what I want to show you, and the reason I was talking about the pliers earlier, is that if you're worried about scarring up your spacers, then you can either use some pliers and like a paper towel or something to protect those spacers, or you may need 2 T8s. You might. But what I like to do is to get these spacers off without having to put without having to worry about messing them up, is I'll try and start by loosening one side, then tightening and back it up, and then loosening the other side. And you can go all the way off with that one, but I honestly like to take everything off on the lock side first. So loosen it, tighten it back up, and then these can come completely off. Sorry, this takes just a second here. And then once again, loosen the presentation side, tighten it back up. Because if you don't, sometimes they're just on here so tight that you're not going to be able to finger hold the other side. So here we go, taking the knife apart. You can see I've got some little bit of dirt in here, but not too bad. Now, I'm glad I thought of this or stopped to realize this. So you'll notice my stop pin is already falling to the side. It does typically fall out pretty easily. So make sure to grab that and set it off to the side. Now the other thing that's interesting is if you look down in here, there you go, now you can see it. There is a metal washer. So if you were taking this apart to anodize, this is a tricky little thing to get out of here. And you, honest to God, sometimes just depending on, this one came out really easy, but a lot of times these are magnetized so you can kind of get it on there, but you got to use something, a little Sharpie point to get in there and get that metal washer out. If you forget it and anodize and you're going for higher anodizing numbers, you're going to regret not getting that off of there. So, and then from here, we've got the bearing, and then of course our pivot screw comes completely out, and our other bearing, and no washer on this side because this is a steel liner. So, and now because we loosen these up, I should be able to just use my hand, and I am able to, but use your hand to get these off. Sometimes you got to push these screws out. And then if you can't use your hand, like I said, wrap it with a paper towel, get your pliers, and hold it if you're worried about damaging it. This is my knife, so I'm not too worried about it. And then just hold on to it, and that should do the trick. So, but like I said, I went ahead and pre-loosened, or not pre-loosened, but you guys saw me loosen on both sides. So sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. And you do take the risk if you're doing that of loosening one side and then getting it to spin, which means you'll definitely need two T8s. So there it is. There's the breakdown on this thing. Get everything in the shot here, if I can. Good gosh, it's a lot to get in here. So there, it's that simple. I mean, it really is. Now let's talk about getting this steel lock insert out. This also takes a T8, and these come apart. This comes off easily. So it just drops right off. And usually, I've shown you guys before, but you put it against a hard surface and tap it, and there it goes, shot right out. Comes off very nicely. So there's the whole breakdown. Very simple process. And then putting it back together, let's just jump. Well, I've got it apart. I have a little bit of rubbing alcohol in here. Let me clean a few things up real quick. I'm not gonna go through too much trouble, but it's funny, as much as I take knives apart, it's rare I take my own knife apart. So, not too dirty. And I've carried and used the heck out of this thing. I love this knife. This was everything I wanted out of the ZT0308. So start, first put in your steel lock insert. And these typically you can hand press, but it's okay if you need to. Set it on a surface. Take something soft. The back end of these Weehaw bits usually works for me. Press it flat. Give it a good couple whacks. Make sure that it's on there nice and tight. And that's on there pretty good, but you're also gonna have, when I jumbled my screws up, moving stuff around, you're also gonna have two screws. And putting these back on, I usually start with the bottom screw. I don't think it really matters, but I don't tighten it quite all the way. But honestly, nothing, when I'm putting a knife back together, I never tighten everything up till I'm completely done. So, and that will make sense to you guys as we get into the process. Now, the reason I usually just stop with the disassembly part, because the reassembly, you can just think through the same things, but thought I'd share a few tips that do really help with this process. Excuse me. So for starters, I work once again, I always like to work the lock side first, and then same thing, putting it back together, work the lock side first. So put my spacers on, and I do like to hold these and try and get them as tight as possible on this side. So this is the only part that I do tighten up pretty darn good. So sorry, correcting myself from what I said earlier. Good thing I'm not a politician. So get these on as tight as you can. And sometimes they've got little stuff in there, so they don't want to go in. Your fingers are going to get stuff on them, so be prepared for that. Even if the knife's brand new, it's going to have some grease and some residue on it. So get these as tight as you can. If you're having problems like I just did screwing one in, just switch it around, because it'll go in, the other screw will go in just fine on the other side. So most of that's because it's just a little tough to hold these. These edges on these are a little tight. Like that one, just doing the same thing. Switch it around. And this is where you could need a pair of pliers. I'm gonna push that up against there. There we go. So get that side completely in there. You'll see, I mean, I was putting a lot of pressure on that to get that tight. So you get your lock side together. Now, you're gonna start from here. Once this is assembled like that, you are gonna start on the presentation side and get your screw. For me, it's easy to see, but I actually just start with the G10 scale and get it snapped in there. So you can see this is machined out to an angle, and the screw will fit and match down in there flush. So until you get that flat, it's not right. And then click your liner on. So all that is good. And then this is where it's a little weird. So make sure you get your washer on, and remember that your bearing on. Remember that your washer is for the other side. And then, funny as it may sound, it is very easy to forget your stop pin. So especially if this falls off when you're taking it apart, you'll just miss it. It's sitting on your floor, and you'll know it when you put your knife back together, because it's pretty funny. But I've done it one time, and I've had a couple customers who said they've also done it. Then from here, get your blade on, and make sure that has got that washer encapsulated inside of it, and it does. And then you're gonna put your washer on, and then you're gonna put, do not forget your steel washer. So your bearing and then your steel washer. That is very important, because if you put it back together without it, it's gonna get goofy. So from here, I like to disengage the blade just a little, and you're gonna feel everything snap in there. Make sure that your stop pin is locked in, and then I just finger tighten on my pivot nut here. So get that as good and tight as I can with my fingers. And believe it or not, as thin as that pivot nut seems to be, it's got a lot of threads to it. So it takes just a second, and then for the safety of my hands and everything else, just for safety in general, I like to close the knife. And on this side, I do not tighten all the way. I get them to where I feel them just get snug. And then I start to tighten, but then I get back and tighten. But get them just get them snug. That's all you got to do. And when they're snug, then you're going to start here on your pivot. Now, I've done a trick before about centering a knife, and it seems to really help on these. So get that pivot tightened up, but just to where it's tight. You don't crush it, guys. If you crush it, you're crushing all your bearings in there. And I got it too tight, to be honest with you. I'm gonna come back off of it just a little. And then we're gonna check it for centering. We're a little bit off, but not enough that I think we're gonna have any problems. So from here, I'm gonna tighten up. If you do have any problems, we've got a video on centering that works really good on this knife. So then go back through and tighten up all your handle screws. Come back over, check. I think I'm still a little too snug, just a little. I'm gonna come back off just a little bit. And yeah, I think from this angle, I can't tell. I might be sitting a little bit. Let me take it away from the camera. Yeah, it needed to be tightened just a little bit more. Don't know if you can tell. I think that's sitting dead centered, but I'll check it after the video's done. So if it's a little off, don't give me too much hell. You don't need to see me put the pocket clip on, but that's it. That's the whole breakdown reassembly process. So hope that helps you out. I tried to do it as quick as possible. Like I said, I've absolutely loved this knife. I've really enjoyed carrying it every day. It's a great flipper, overbuilt knife. For the price, you're getting a whole heck of a lot of knife. So we do have these in stock over at USA Made Blade. If we do ever run out, right now this is still full production. So we will get them back in if we are ever out. But it's the ZT0308, and this was how I break it down and reassemble it with some tips. I hope it helped you guys out. Appreciate everybody watching. I hope you'll go over to USAMadeBlade.com and pick yourself up something and have yourself a great day.